Right. Mabla madam. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tell me.
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
sir.
Can I start, madam? Okay,
Yes.
madam. I'm just checking my voice. Is it okay, madam?
Fine, sir. Fine.
Thank you, madam.
Okay.
Right. Students, now today we have a class on anatomy and physiology. I hope you understand the first unit. Now we move on to the second unit. If you have a unit, I mean syllabus with you, please check unit number 2. Okay. Right. At the outside, I would like to tell you something here. Now, simply watching the video or watching the screen, you may not learn much, but I request you all to take a pen and paper, take a small notes to keep yourself, keep remembrance. Small notes. Then you can organize yourself. Then you can prepare yourself. Then you go for writing. Okay. But simply watching it, you may not get exact idea how to write your examinations. I'm giving you from the beginning to end. Okay. I'll make some kind of progressive way of teaching here. So I request all of you take a paper and a pen or a note. Take small notes in your language that you may understand. Okay. Then I'll make, if you want some Tamil, I can make some Tamil. Okay. Here, I request you all to take small notes in your hands. Okay. And that's very important for you to organize yourself and in order to write an organized pattern of answers in the examinations. Right. Shall we move now? So unit number 2 says talks about the heart. Okay. Cardiovascular system. They used to say cardiovascular system. Cardio means heart. Vascular means blood vessels. Cardio means cardio, like that. If you found any word like this somewhere, understand it is heart. Okay. Vascular means blood vessels. தமிழ்ல வந்து ரத்த நாளம்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. Right. Blood vessels. Right. Gross anatomy of the heart. We used to say anatomy of the heart because the subject deals with the anatomy. Anatomy means structure of the that particular organ, and the physiology means the function of the particular organ. Right. Good. Now you could see the screen. Two pictures here. This one is a gross structure of the anatomy or gross anatomy of the heart. Okay. From the outside we see this. In this left side, your left side is called cross section of the heart. Okay. You may not draw this kind of the right side picture in the examination. So you may you may draw a picture of heart like this in the left side. So that it is easy for you to make a small two-dimensional diagram and label all the parts here. Sometimes they may ask you to draw any structure of the heart and label all the parts and briefly write the functions of the heart. Okay, this is the way they may ask some questions. 5 marks and 10 marks. The question might be like this: or 5 marks or 15 marks. 5 mark question 10 and 15 mark questions 2, like that they may ask you. So totally in the 75 marks you have to write in the external examinations, right? Now we move on to again the structure of the heart. Here, this kind of picture you should do it. Okay, good. Next slide. I make the next slide, then you can understand. So the heart located here, you can see this is a respiratory system. I take it for to make you to understand certain things. This is the heart. Heart located in the middle of the chest and slightly tilted to the left side. Okay, slightly tilted to the left side. This is the location of the heart. You can make a small note. No, hereafter I will not say take a note, take a note, take a note like that. Okay. So you should know how to take the notes. Okay. Small note. Okay. In the middle of the chest and slightly in the apex, I'll show you later. The apex is slightly tilted towards the left side. Okay. Right. The shape of the heart here, if the grass anatomy, if you see the grass anatomy here, the shape is a conical shape. This is called apex. This apex is slightly tilted to the left side. Okay. Just look at just behind the sternum bone. It is called chest bone. In the front, if you see the middle of it, there is a knife-like structure bone here in the chest. That bone is called sternum. Just behind the sternum bone. Okay. Slightly this apex slightly tilted to the left side. Okay. Right. The heart made up of two layers. The outer layer is called pericardium. The inner layer is called endocardium. But the middle of the muscle, heart muscle, is called myocardium. Okay. Pericardium. Inside is the endocardium. The middle is called myocardium. Okay. So three-layered structure. Already, you know, the heart is made up of a specialized tissue called that cardiac tissue. Exactly. Okay. Cardiac tissue. Now you should understand shape, conical shape, location just behind the sternum, middle of the chest, the apex slightly tilted to the left side of the chest, and which made up of three layers. The outer layer is a pericardium. The innermost lining of uh, heart is endocardium. The middle layer is called myocardium. It's not there in the slide, but right, myocardium. Good. Now this is a gross anatomy from the outside. Look at this. There are some blood vessels. A little later, I'll discuss about that. Okay. Any doubt, I can ask you a little later after the end of this heart anatomy. Okay. Good. We move on to the next. Now there is a cross section of the heart. Okay. Now you should see that. I'll make you a very simple way to make simple way to explain to make you to understand. Right. Now before that, go here. The same picture. Same picture here. Right. Have a look. We move on. Okay. So in under these three titles, we are going to discuss the anatomy of the heart. Okay. One is chambers, valves, and blood vessels. So what are the chambers and what are the valves present in the heart, and what are the blood vessels present in the heart? Chambers, valves, and blood vessel. Right. Heart has a chambers. Heart has a four chambers. Okay. This is a 1, 2, 3, 4, four chambers. The upper chambers. These upper chambers called atrium. Here, this is the right atrium. This is the left atrium. Right atria and left atria. The lower chambers, these lower chambers, two lower chambers are called ventricles. This is the right ventricle and the left ventricle. How many chambers? Four chambers. In upper, there are two chambers. In lower section, there are two chambers. Right atria, right ventricle, left ventricle. The four chambers of the heart. Okay. So anatomy. Then we move on to the valves. How many valves are there here? Right? So here, upper chambers, this is divided by this ventricular section, divided here, which has no connection between left and right side. Here, no connection between left and right. Ventricles, no connection here between left ventricle and right ventricle, and no connection here, left atrium and right atrium. Right? Right. The valves, the only the blood from the left atrium moves to the left ventricle. Right? Good. So people are keep on joining and disturbing me. I have to admit. Okay, however, good. So here the valves here, this between this right atrium and left atrium. Remember, this is the right atrium and this is the atrium. You can mark in this picture if you are writing, or if you draw idea picture, you can make it as a right atrium is a right ventricle. Between this, there is one valve here. Okay, that valve is a tricuspid valve. There is a tricuspid valve. This valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle. That regulates the blood between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Okay. So another valve here you can find here. So this is a left side. This is a left side. This left side, left atrium and left ventricle. In this valve here, you can see. Sometimes that is termed as the mitral valve. Here, mitral valve. But most of the times they call bicuspid. Only two cusps. Bi means two cusps will be there. So that they used to say bicuspid valve or mitral valve here. Sometimes they used to say that right ventricular auricle valve. Sometimes they term like that also. Okay, bicuspid valve. This bicuspid valve regulates the blood between the left atrium and the left ventricle. How many valves are there? Now, inside of the heart, there are two valves. One is tricuspid valve, another bicuspid valve. Between the right atrium to right ventricle and bicuspid valve between the left ventricle, left atrium to left ventricle. Okay, there are two more valves. This valve you should understand here. Then later you can understand. Those two valves are called semilunar valve. Semilunar valve. Okay, this valve present one valve, one semilunar valve here. Here in this is called aorta. This is called aorta. It's the largest blood vessel of the body. Aorta. You can see here aorta. A-O-R-A. Aorta. The R is silent here. They used to call aorta. Okay. This one aorta at the opening of this aorta, we have one semilunar valve. Here, this is called aortic semilunar valve. Here there is one valve called aortic. This aortic semilunar valve. This blue color vessel is called pulmonary artery. Okay, this blue color is called pulmonary artery. This pulmonary artery, at the opening of the pulmonary artery, there's one more semilunar valve that is called pulmonary semilunar valve. Pulmonary semilunar valve. There are two semilunar valve. One is at the opening of the aorta. One is at the opening of the pulmonary artery. Now again, you go here. Okay, now you should draw this kind of picture. This is a right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. This is called aorta. This is pulmonary artery. Here. Right. We move on to the next. Here, chambers over, 4 chambers, and the valves are over. Right. Now we move on to the blood vessels. So what are the blood vessels in the heart? Okay. Here you should remember, I divide them, I classify into two areas, but already classified very clearly. Now in literatures. Okay. Now to make you give some idea, to give you some more idea, I'll make it this way. Some blood vessels brings the blood to the heart. Some blood vessels takes the blood from the heart, okay, to the body or to the lungs. Remember, again, I'm telling you, one is some blood vessels takes the blood to the heart, okay, carries the blood to the heart. Some blood vessels takes the blood from the heart to different parts. In that heading only you are reading here. So to atrium. So some blood vessels brings the blood to the heart. Okay, most of the times, not most of the times, almost all the times, the blood received by the atriums. Remember, okay, no blood goes out of the heart from the atrium. Remember very clearly. So only the blood received by the atrium. In simple word, okay, to atrium. The right side. This is right side. From the right side. This right side, atrium receives two blood vessels, very large blood vessels. Okay, here you can say in the left side, the two blue color here, opening here, right? This one is inferior vena cava. Inferior means down, from the down. Okay, lower limb of the body. Those blood, used bloods are brings back to the right atrium. Okay, the other one is called superior vena cava. From head and upper limb, all the used bloods bring back to the atrium through this vein, largest vein. Sometimes they may ask you a question, what is the largest vein of the body? You may write superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. These two blood vessels brings the water, brings the blood from the different parts to the heart. Okay, this is a left atrium. Two blood vessels called superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. And if you move on to this left side of the atrium, already I told you, atrium only receives the blood, okay? Never comes the blood to the anywhere. This left side of the atrium, you can see four pulmonary veins. 1, 2 here, another 1, 2 here. Now the picture 1, 2, and 1, 2. These all 4. Here you can see pulmonary veins. Here you can see pulmonary. All 4 pulmonary veins carries the blood to the left atrium here. Okay, this blood comes from the lungs usually, not usually. This particular 4 blood vessels carries the blood from the lung to the heart. Okay, takes the opening here in the left atrium. Okay, now there are vessels, the right side, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. In the left side, 4 openings, there are 4 pulmonary veins. Okay, these 4, right. Now move on to the ventricular blood vessels. Okay. Now why did I put it here from the ventricles? This vessels takes the blood from the heart, not brings back the blood to the heart, but rather they are taking the blood from the heart to different area. Okay. This is the left ventricle and the right ventricle. Okay. Here, this right ventricle, from the right ventricle, the blood pumps into the blood vessel. This blood vessel is called pulmonary artery. Already I told you this vessel is called pulmonary artery. Okay, pulmonary artery. So the blood comes from the superior vena cava and inferior vena cava, enters into the right atrium, pushes the blood into the right ventricle through this tricuspid valve. This ventricle pushes the blood into the pulmonary artery, blue color. This blue color pulmonary artery. This vessel carries the blood to the lungs for purification of the blood. Okay, you understand the purification? Purification nothing but eliminating the carbon dioxide and takes in the oxygen from the lungs. Okay, this is the one thing here, right? In the left side of the ventricle, here left side of the ventricle, this left side of the ventricle, already I told you, this is the largest artery, largest blood vessel, the red color, aorta. Called aorta, and the R is silent here. We should call it aorta, not aorta. Okay, it's aorta. Okay, now you could remember 4 chambers, 4 valves, and blood vessels. Here, blood vessel, superior, inferior vena cava in the right atrium, 4 pulmonary veins in the left atrium. From the right ventricle, there is pulmonary artery. From the left ventricle, there is aorta. Okay, right. You can open. You have any doubt, you can ask now. Madam?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
Just open.
Yeah. They can.
Anatomy of the heart.
Yeah, they can ask us.
Yes, audience, if you have any doubt, you can ask now. Any doubt? Someone called Sri Priya, BSc, she needs always some Tamil interpretations, or not interpretations, some Tamil teaching. If you want, you can tell me if you don't understand anything. Sri Priya from BSc. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay. More minute, because people may have. This is only a gross anatomy of the. Next part, you should be a little clear. Some people may understand some science background, some people may not understand. But, I want to make a little short, and then only we can move faster to the next unit. Okay. We are going very little slower pace. Okay, if this is the pace, we cannot complete the entire syllabus. Go a little faster, right? Shall we move next? Okay, good. If you see the syllabus, you can see next here. Circulatory system. The structure of the heart is over. Yeah, that's called anatomy. Structure means anatomy of the heart. We move on to the cardiac cycle. I hope some of you might know this very well. There, it is very good, well and good. Okay, only I'm concerned about the people who don't understand this, are new to this anatomy physiology, or have some difficulty of understanding, can very well ask question. Okay, so now we move on to the cardiac cycle. This is this one. Right. What is the main function of the heart? Actually, I'm missing my classroom, but if I'm asking some question that I miss this interaction between the student and teacher. This online class very disadvantageous for this particular aspect. Okay, what is the important function of the heart? Okay, I'll let you know that the important function of the heart is pumping out the blood to the body. Pumping out, remember. Okay? There's no other function. It's just pumping the blood to the different parts of the body. That's the main function of the heart. Okay. Right, cardiac cycle. So some people may know this. Okay, some people may not know what is cardiac cycle. Cycle means repetitive movements. Okay, one starting to end. There are movements here. Okay, cardiac cycle means here each heartbeat itself is a cardiac cycle. That means sequential movements are there to make that one beat, one sound. Okay, and the lub dub sound. No, that's one cycle. Each beat is called cardiac cycle. So in 1 minute, how many cardiac cycle takes place? How many beats are there? There are 70 to 80 beats between. Okay, 72 at an average for adult human. 72 beats means how many cycles cardiac cycle takes place means 72 cardiac cycle takes place. Already I told you each heartbeat is a cardiac cycle, one cycle. A little later I'll discuss about what are the events takes place inside. Okay, so what is cardiac cycle? In writing or giving some definition, sequential events of contraction of the heart and relaxation of the heart. Relaxation is missing. One contraction and relaxation towards that one is called sequential events are involved in that. In contrast, pumping out of blood. The blood pumps out from the heart, but this happens by sequential contraction and relaxation movements. Okay? That particular movements called cardiac cycle. In simple word, each beat of the heart is called one cardiac cycle. So if per minute it approximately 72 beats. That means 72 cardiac cycle takes place. Okay. Now I introduce two words to you. One is systole, another one is diastole. Okay. Systole and diastole. Systole means contraction, diastole means relaxation. Okay. So systole means contraction, diastole means relaxation. Now, what are the four important events? Okay, but it's not this on the right side. I have put some words, sentences here. These sentences for giving you some idea. Those who don't know this background, okay, but it's not the events. It's the events only, but I'm not putting it a regular order. Okay, next slide. I'll show you what are the exact events takes place. Okay, but here this one you don't need to write. You just listen to me. You can understand. Okay, systole means already told you what is systole. Contraction. Diastole means relaxation. So atrial dystole, that is the one thing. Atrial dystole. Second one is called ventricular dystole. Here means atrial dystole means atrial contraction. Second one is ventricular diastole. Diastole means relaxation. Ventricle relaxation. Third one is ventricular systole. That means ventricle contracts. Fourth one is atrial diastole. That means atrium relaxation. Atrial relaxation. These are the events. I just summarize to make you to understand. Okay, I'll let you know little later. At the next slide, you can see what are the things happen. So, heart does not contracts entirely at once. Remember, if entirely contracts in one shot, okay, what will happen when it relax? And all the chambers will be empty. Would have been empty. Got the point here? But the heart contracts first atrial level, then pushes the blood into the ventricle, and ventricle, the blood goes into the ventricle and produces pressure. Then ventricle contracts. When ventricle contracts, the blood goes into the two important vessels. From the right side ventricle, there is one vessel, pulmonary artery. Blood enters into the pulmonary artery. From the left side, the blood enters into the aorta. Here, again, I'm telling you, the blood comes to the atrium. From the right atrium to the right atrium, superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava brings the blood to the right atrium. Okay, that goes inside to the right atrium, and the four pulmonary veins brings the blood from the lungs to the left atrium. So the atrium filled now, okay, full of blood. That time, that blood passively enters, passively, not actively, passively enters into the ventricle through the tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve. Okay, once that passive filling over, now what happens? That atrium contracts, that is called atrial systole. That means that press and sends the blood to the ventricle. So ventricle pressure will increase. Okay, ventricle pressure increases. When it contracts, the blood pushes into the ventricles. That time, ventricular diastole, ventricle relaxes. Okay, ventricle relaxes. That means that allows the blood to enters inside the ventricle from the atrium. The ventricle diastole happens. During this time, that atrial atrioventricular valves, that is called tricuspid and bicuspid valve, opens. Blood enters into the ventricle through the tricuspid and bicuspid valve. Okay? Now the entire blood after atrial distal systole, that means atrial contraction, enters into the ventricle. Now the ventricular pressure goes high. Immediately, what happens when it receives the blood here, the ventricular diastole, the ventricular pressure goes high, so ventricle starts contracting. That's mean ventricular systole. Okay, during that time, that two valves, tricuspid valve and bicuspid valve, closes it. That never or prevents the blood to enter back to the atrium. Okay, shut down. That's the first sound of the heart here. That is the first sound, or love sound. Okay, first the love sound comes due to closure of the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve. So ventricular systole happens. This ventricular press down, that means contracts. The blood can enter into the two blood vessels. From the right side, enters into the pulmonary artery. From the left side, the blood enters into the aorta, but never goes back to the atrium due to closure of the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve. Okay, that's the first sound. What happens immediately? The ventricular systole, again ventricle goes for, during this action, the atrial diastole will happen. That means atrium relaxes, the blood enters into the atrium. Simultaneously, the ventricle relaxes. When the ventricle relaxes, the ventricle pressure is lower down. That time, the blood enters into the pulmonary artery and aorta should not come back. To prevent that one, the semilunar valve. Do you understand what is semilunar valve? In the opening of the pulmonary artery, in the opening of the aorta. The pulmonary artery and the aorta at the opening, we can find the semilunar. Those semilunar valves shut down. That is called dub sound, the second sound of the heart, love dub. Okay, that's one sound. Okay, once that happens, again it goes to the arterial systole, ventricular systole, and atrial systole. These all the events takes place. Okay, I hope you may understand this. If any doubt, go to the next one. You can easily see that one. So remember systole and diastole. This word will come again to the blood pressure also. Okay, so may just give some importance to this kind of words. Okay, these two terms. Systole, systole. Some people will pronounce it systole. Some people diastole. In Western side, they use systole and diastole. Okay, or events atrial systole, ventricular diastole, ventricular systole, and atrial diastole. Alternative, vice versa. Okay, actually, those words, those phases, I just discussed with you to give you some idea. Okay, what exactly happens during this cardiac cycle? Okay, there are 5 phases. One phase, atrial systole, okay, atrial systole. Second one is isovolumetric contraction. What is isovolumetric contraction here? Just a word, very little technical word. Okay, nothing big on that one. Okay, when atrial systole, atrial contraction, the blood goes into the ventricle. Okay, that means ventricle during that phase, the passive entry, the ventricle never contracts. So the volume will be same. Iso means same, volume means the volume of blood is same. No contraction, but due to pressure of, contraction of the artery, the blood goes, automatically the contraction produces. That means that produces some tension over the ventricle. So that particular phase is called isovolumetric contraction. Okay. Second thing, rapid ejection. That means rapidly eject the blood. Ejection means the blood goes out of the heart. Okay, ejection, that is called ventricular systole. Okay, ventricular systole. When ventricular systole happens, the valves, tricuspid valves and bicuspid valves closes. That's the first sound comes here. And reduced ejection. Reduced means relaxation of the or ventricular diastole. Same time, simultaneously, atrial diastole also takes place. Here, when the reduced ejection takes place, that semilunar valve shut down from, so that second sound comes. Okay. Here, isovolumetric relaxation. This term, used here in the atrial filling. When atrium receives the blood and passively, when the atrium relaxes, automatically vacuum creates, the empty space creates, so that passively blood enters into the atrium. Okay, from the superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and this left side from the pulmonary veins. Okay. These events in the 5 phases together takes place lesser than the minute. Second. Lesser than the second. So each minute has a 60 second, but we have how many beats? 72 beats. Okay? Approximate average, right? But 72 means in 60 seconds, we have 72 cardiac cycle. That means each cycle, these 5 phases take place lesser than a second. Yeah. If you like, I can show you one particular video in the same video. If you want, you can see that. After that, I'll give you for the question. Right, able to hear the sound?
No, sir. No,
No,
sir.
no sound. Yes, or the video sound கேக்குதா madam?
Yeah, no sound, sir.
Sound கேக்கலையா மேடம்?
கேட்கல சார், கேட்கல.
Come out with other method, okay?
Cycle refers to the sequence of events that occur and repeat with every heartbeat.
Sir, now we can hear the sound.
Yes.
Phases, systole and diastole, each of which subdivides into several smaller phases. Systole and diastole, when not specified otherwise, refer to ventricular contraction and relaxation, respectively. Reminders: from higher to lower pressure. Contraction increases the pressure in the chamber, while relaxation lowers the pressure. V valves open when atrial pressures are higher than ventricular pressures and close when the pressure gradient is reversed. Similarly, semilunar valves open when ventricular pressures are higher than aortic pulmonary pressures and close when the reverse is true. The cycle is initiated with the firing of the SA node that stimulates the atria to depolarize. This is represented by the P wave on the ECG. Atrial contraction starts shortly after the P wave begins and causes the pressure within the atria to increase, forcing blood into the ventricles. Atrial contraction, however, only accounts for a fraction of ventricular filling, because at this point, the ventricles are already almost full due to passive blood flow down the ventricles through the open AV valves. As atrial contraction completes, atrial pressure begins to fall, reversing the pressure gradient across the AV valves, causing them to close. The closing of the AV valves produces the first heart sound, S1, and marks the beginning of systole. At this point, ventricular depolarization, represented by the QRS complex, is halfway through and the ventricles start to contract, rapidly building up pressures inside the ventricles. For a moment, however, the semilunar valves remain closed and the ventricles contract within a closed space. This phase is referred to as isovolumetric contraction because no blood is ejected and ventricular volume is unchanged. Ventricular ejection starts when ventricular pressures exceed the pressures within the aorta and pulmonary artery. The aortic and pulmonic valves open and blood is ejected out of the ventricles. This is the rapid ejection phase. As ventricular repolarization, reflected by the T wave, begins, ventricular pressure starts to fall and the force of ejection is reduced. When ventricular pressures drop below aortic and pulmonary pressures, semilunar valves close, marking the end of systole and beginning of diastole. Closure of semilunar valves produces the second heart sound, S2. The first part of diastole is, again, isovolumetric, as the ventricles relax with all valves closed. Ventricular pressure drops rapidly, but their volumes remain unchanged. Meanwhile, the atria are being filled with blood and atrial pressures rise slowly. Ventricular filling starts when ventricular pressures drop below atrial pressures, causing the AV valve to open, allowing blood to flow down ventricles passively. The atria contract to finish the filling phase, and the cycle repeats itself.
Right. Now you could understand somewhat better way. So phase 1, atrial systole. Second phase, isovolumetric contraction. Phase 3, rapid ejection, that is ventricular systole. Phase 4, reduced ejection. Phase 5, isovolumetric relaxation. Okay. So you have any doubt, you can ask now. So I do understand your some people's perspective, non-science background perspective here. So this slide, if you see that, I make it a little simple way here, that 5 phases can be made in this way also. People will understand. So atrial systole, ventricular diastole, ventricular systole, atrial diastole. Diastole means contraction. Diastole means relaxation. Atrial systole, atrial contraction. Ventricular diastole, ventricular relaxation. Ventricular systole, ventricular contraction. Atrial diastole, atrial relaxation. So this thing here, these two terms, systole and diastole, already we discussed. Is card cycle. Each beat is a cardiac cycle, one cardiac cycle. So approximately 72 cardiac cycle takes place in a minute. That means heart rate is 72 times. I mean, contract and relax 72 times. Those events are this one. To make a little technical, make it this way: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. All these 5 events takes place lesser than a second. Okay, good. Any doubt you can ask now. Right? Any difficulty in understanding? Please tell me. That also I can consider here. In what way you get a difficulty? If you tell me, then I can try to correct. Whether it's my side or the explanation to be a little simpler, or some other way I can help you out. Abla madam?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Screen வருதா மேடம்? என்னோட ஸ்கிரீன் ஷேர் ஆகுதா?
Screen share ஆகுது.
மூவ் ஆகுதுல?
ஆமா.
இல்ல சார்.
PPT போட்டிருக்கீங்களா?
PPT ல இருக்கேன்.
PPT வரல சார்.
வரலையா?
இல்ல வரல.
வரேன், நல்லா திருப்பி வரது. இப்போ தெரியுதா மேடம்?
Okay, okay, sir. Okay.
Right. These 5 events, if you can make note of it. Okay. If you want, I already told you, take note. Sometime why I ask you to make a note, you can know how in the what order you have to write an examination. Okay. When you're watching the YouTube or some other thing, you may not know in the what way you should write. The order which I taught you, in the same order, if you're writing, you'll get some organized form. That note more than enough. Or else the words I say or the sentence I use, that word's more than enough. Okay. Just point by point, make a point, first point, second point, third point, fourth point, like that. It's a sequential events of heart contraction, 72 beats. Each beat is a cardiac cycle. There are 5 phases of cardiac cycle: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. This will ensure you 4 marks if it is 5 mark question. Okay. Rest, what happens in the first phase, what happens in the second phase, what happens in the third phase, what happens in the third or fourth phase, fifth phase. Writing will get ensure 4.5 to 5 marks. Clear idea. Okay. Or else we simply write these terms, terminologies, systole, diastole, atrial systole, like that. If you write it, sure you'll get a 3 marks minimum. In examination perspective, I'm talking. Okay. But I want you to learn more. This is important subject. Everyone must understand. All human, right? Especially yoga people. Most of the times they used to say, heart will develop through yoga. So you should know the function of the heart, right? Any doubt? No doubts, I guess. Any difficulty in understanding also, let me know. Right. Chat box open irka, madam?
Sir?
Chat box open irka?
Open. Already
Okay.
open. Yeah.
Anything you can type. Okay. Right. Next heading. See that syllabus. Next heading, blood pressure. Okay. Blood pressure. This is a word. If you don't know what is blood pressure. Okay. Blood pressure. The pressure is not in the blood actually, but the blood creates the pressure against the walls of the blood vessel. Okay. Already we discussed about the different types of blood vessel. Okay. One is aorta, another one is veins, vena cavas, right? Pulmonary artery, aorta, pulmonary veins, like that. Okay. How the amount of pressure the blood creates against the walls of the those blood vessels. Okay, that is called. Mostly this blood pressure measured in the arterial blood pressure. They used to say arterial blood pressure. You know what is artery? Okay, a little later next heading we'll discuss what is artery. Most of the times, not most, yes, most of the times the blood pressure measured in the arteries. So sometimes they term this arterial blood pressure. Okay. Okay, this blood pressure are in two forms. One is systolic pressure, another one is diastolic pressure. Already you are familiarized the word systole and diastole. Okay. What is systole? Contraction. Diastole, relaxation of the heart. Systole and the same word repeated here. Systolic pressure, diastolic pressure. Okay. I'll let you know what is systolic and what is diastolic pressure. Okay. So heart contracts. When the heart pumps the blood, when ventricle contracts, the blood comes out. Okay, blood enters into the aorta, and blood enters into the pulmonary artery from the right side of the ventricle. Okay, but whereas the atrium contracts, no blood comes out of the heart. Okay, the only blood comes into the ventricles from the atrium. That's a thing we studied earlier in the cardiac cycle. Okay. Now you should understand systolic pressure means systole means contraction. When blood comes out, only ventricle contracts. Okay. In left ventricle contracts, the blood ejected into the left side of the blood vessel, largest blood vessel is called aorta. The blood enters into the aorta. That creates the pressure because extra amount of blood enters into the aorta, so that the pressure will be changes. Okay. That time during the contraction of the left ventricle, blood enters into the aorta, so that that increases the blood pressure of the blood vessel. That blood vessel, that pressure is called systolic pressure. In simple word, systolic pressure is a pressure during contraction of the left ventricle. Simple definition to the systolic pressure. Okay. Already told you it's arterial blood pressure. Okay. What is diastolic pressure? Diastolic pressure, when the ventricle, just you should make it just opposite action. When the pressure measured during the relaxation of the left ventricle. Okay. So what you could understand now. Okay. Systolic pressure when during the contraction of the left ventricle. This pressure created due to the amount of blood pumped into the aorta. So the pressure goes up. Okay. That is called systolic pressure. Diastolic pressure, when the left ventricle relaxes, no blood ejected into the blood vessel, so that blood pressure in the blood vessel little lesser. Okay. So the normal blood pressure here 120 by 80 mmHg. 120 is a systolic pressure, 80 is a diastolic pressure. Okay. mmHg, millimeter. Hg means here there's a mercury. Okay. See that machine, cuff they used to put to the upper arm and they pumping the air, and the doctor will have hold your wrist and finding the pulse. That particular instrument is called sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. Okay. That's an instrument used to measure the blood pressure. Okay. Two forms: systolic pressure, diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure is during contraction of the left ventricle due to ejection of the blood into the aorta that creates extra amount of pressure. That is systolic. Diastolic during the relaxation of the left ventricle, no blood enters into the aorta. So pressure is little less. It's 80 mmHg. 80 mmHg. The systolic pressure 120 mmHg is a normal pressure, blood pressure. Okay. Now move on to the next. Okay. Right. The abnormal blood pressure. There are 120 by 80 mmHg is a normal amount. Okay. Sometimes it's lesser than 110 to 120 or 120 to 130. This is a normal only. In systolic pressure, I'm talking. Okay. 110 to 120 or 120 to 130 might be normal. They treated as a normal. Okay. Most of the times when we are at rest, that blood pressure records 110, 115 like that in systolic pressure, 75, 78 like that in diastolic pressure. When we are at rest, okay. Sometime in walk and exercises, it increases. Abnormal blood pressure, two forms here. One is high BP, another one is low BP. Okay, but technically the term high BP is a hypertension. Low BP is termed as a hypotension. Okay, two things here. In the right side, why this blood pressure? I mean, abnormal blood pressure, especially hypertension, causes what causes the hypertension. In the right side, you can see some idea, just only idea. Most of it is unknown why this blood pressure comes. Okay, it's unknown. It's sometimes this is called psychosomatic disease. Okay, hypertension. But most of the no researchable evidence, only some kind of ideas we got. That is smoking or alcohol drinking leads to the blood pressure hypertension. But most of the times we may not understand, or some genetical factor also is there. And most of the times why this particular disorder hypertension afflicted people, it's mostly unknown fact. People are still working on research, doing research to identify this one. Okay. Sometimes people say stress gives blood pressure like that. Okay. It's a very bad lifestyle may leads to this kind of thing. Okay, it's one of the killer or silent killer. They used to say blood pressure silent killer. Most of the people may not know that. The young people, they have blood pressure, hypertension. They may not know. They ignore it. Sometimes this will lead to stroke. Okay, what is stroke? Later we'll discuss. But this idea of normal and when it become a hypertension has two stages: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 here. Okay. So normal and elevated. The already discussed normal is 120 by 80 mmHg. Here some elevated levels from the 120 to 129 and less than 80 also is a normal only. Okay. The stage 1 hypertension, stage 1 here, 130 to 139 is stage 1. Okay, 80 to 89 is stage 1. And stage 2 here, 140 or higher is a stage 2. 90 or higher here, the diastolic pressure goes 90 or higher, it's a stage 2. This is need immediate medical attention. Stage 3 here, immediate medical attention higher than 180. Which needs immediate medical attention. Okay, why this happens? Because hardening of the blood vessel. Okay, what is stroke here? More the hypertension mostly affect. End very serious damage to the brain here. The blood vessel becomes so hard when the blood enters forcefully. Sometimes that bursts out. Okay, in the brain. Brain tissues are very soft, very sensitive, and that blood vessel also very thin and elastic. But when due to this hardness of the due to hypertension, the blood vessel bursts out, that spills the blood inside. That is called hemorrhage, internal hemorrhage. That causes immediate death. Okay, that's called stroke. Right. In blood pressure, do you have any doubt? You can ask now. Blood pressure. In blood pressure, if you have any doubt, you can ask.
Sir,
Yes, yes.
sir, does BP leads to hemorrhage, sir, brain hemorrhage?
That is called stroke. Okay, only in the serious case, in the stage 3, sometimes we cannot. Sometimes you can see paralyzed left side, or some aged people. You might see that due to BP, they have some paralysis of left hand, right hand, or right leg, or left hand, like that. No, because due to this hemorrhage at the brain. Okay? Only in the serious case. But the early stage identification of the BP and medical attention definitely will prevent this kind of thing. Okay, so that we should be aware of that one. The giddiness after waking up in the morning. Sometimes it is all some kind of symptoms of BP. Okay, so in the serious cases, this is possible. I cannot say third stage.
So we need to.
Okay.
Sir, hello.
Yes, yes.
Sir, pressure வந்து ஹார்ட்டோட பம்பிங் பிரஷரா இல்லைன்னா இந்த நர்வ்ஸ்
அதான் சொன்னாலே ஃபர்ஸ்ட் நீங்க பார்க்கணும். பிரஷர் அப்படின்னா என்ன அர்த்தம்னா அந்த பிளட் பிரஷர்னு சொல்லும்போது the blood வந்து blood creates the pressure against the walls of the blood vessel. blood vesselனா தமிழ்ல வந்து ரத்த நாளம்னு சொல்லுவாங்க இதுக்கு இல்லையா, ரத்த குழாயின்னு கூட சொல்லுவாங்க.
வால்ங்கிறது எது சார் இது?
வால்ங்கிறது வந்து அந்த அந்த குழாயோட இது குழாயின்னு சொல்றோம் இல்லையா, ரத்த குழாயின்னு சொல்றோம் இல்லையா,
ஆமா ஆமா ஆமா,
அந்த இருக்கிற வால் அதோட அந்த அந்த சர்ஃபேஸ், that surface is wall ன்னு நீங்க surface of the blood
அது வந்து
vessel.
என்ன திக் ஆயிடுன்றீங்களா?
திக்காறதுனால திக்காறதுக்கு நிறைய ரீசன் இருக்கு. அந்த பிரஷரை தான் நம்ம பிளட் பிரஷர், அதுல வந்து பிளட் கிரியேட் பண்ணும். சப்போஸ் ஒரு ஹோஸ், நீங்க வாட்டர் ஹோஸ் பண்றீங்க இல்லையா,
ஆமா ஆமா,
வாட்டர் ஹோஸ் நீங்க வாட்டர் ஹோஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கீங்க. அந்த வாட்டர் ஹோஸ்ல வாட்டர் உள்ள ஃபோர்ஸ்ஃபுல்லா வந்துச்சுன்னா ஒரு பிரஷர் இருக்கும். வாட்டர் இல்லைன்னா அதோட பிரஷர் எப்படி இருக்கும், கம்மியா இருக்கும், அமுக்கலாம், ஃபிளெக்சிபிளா இருக்கும். That's a concept you should understand here. When blood forces into the blood vessel, there is a pressure. When heart relaxes, no blood ejected into the blood vessel. அப்போ வந்து அதோட flexibility அதிகமா இருக்கும் இல்லையா, that is called diastolic pressure. When blood enters, that is called systolic pressure. Then அந்த pressure தான் we call blood pressure, not in the heart. Okay, it is at the blood vessel.
Systolic pressure வந்து return to heart sir?
இல்ல return to heart இல்ல systolic pressure அப்படின்னா left ventricle contract ஆகும்போது that blood enters into the artery. அப்படியே அடுத்த லைஸ்ல உங்களுக்கு சொல்லி அடுத்ததுல வரும். ஆர்டரிங்கிறது ஒரு blood vessel. ஓகேவா? when blood enters means that pressure will be high, little high. That is called systolic pressure. During the contraction of the heart, blood enters into
அது heart
vessel.
வெளியில வரும்ல சார், heartல இருந்து வெளியில வரும்.
ஹார்ட்ல இருந்து வெளியில போகும். எக்ஸாக்ட்லி பாடி எல்லாத்துக்கும் எடுத்துட்டு போகும். நான் அடுத்ததுல உங்களுக்கு
எடுத்துட்டு போகும்.
அடுத்ததுல சொல்ல உங்களுக்கு புரியும். ஓகேவா? அந்த டைம்ல இருக்கிற pressure is a systolic pressure. when heart relaxes அந்த டைம்ல ஒரு pressure வந்து கொஞ்சம் கம்மியாகும், ஏன்னா no blood comes out இல்லையா, அந்த pressure வந்து diastolic during relaxation of the heart. ஓகேவா? சேம்
ஹார்ட்
blood
ரிலாக்ஸ் பண்ணும்போது பிளட் மூவ்மெண்ட் இருக்காது சார்.
blood movement இருக்காதனால கம்மியா இருக்கும். pressure blood ஓட மூவ்மெண்ட் இருந்துட்டே தான் இருக்கும். பட் அங்க என்ன இருக்குன்னா அந்த எக்ஸ்ட்ரா அமௌண்ட் ஆஃப் blood வந்து பம்பிங் ஆகாது. ஓகேவா? அதனால blood வந்து blood vessel already has the normal pressure இருக்கும். அதுதான் diastolic pressure னு சொல்றோம். when blood enters ஆகும்போது அந்த pressure கொஞ்சம் இன்க்ரீஸ் ஆகும். அத வந்து systolic pressure னு சொல்றோம். to make you
இல்ல சார், blood எவ்வளவு வெளியில வந்தாலும் திருப்பி ஹார்ட்டுக்கு அதே லெவல் தான உள்ள போகும்.
இல்ல நான் உங்களுக்கு நெக்ஸ்ட் சொல்றேன். நீங்க உங்களோட கொஞ்சம் கான்செப்ட்ல அந்த கான்செப்ட புரிஞ்சுக்கிறது உங்களுக்கு you need some more time. ஓகே, அது நான் நெக்ஸ்ட்ல உங்களுக்கு புரியுறேன். ஓகே, இப்போ இத மட்டும் புரிஞ்சு pressure-னா blood vessel-ங்கற மாதிரி புரிஞ்சு. நெக்ஸ்ட் ஸ்லைட்ல I will explain it. Okay, someone ask someone. Yes
Felix sir.
Yes
sir, அந்த ஸ்டேஜிங் சிஸ்டம் கொடுத்திருந்தீங்களா சார்? 3 ஸ்டேஜிங்
cardiac cycle
இல்ல சார், இது நம்ம ஹைப்பர் டென்ஷன்ல ஸ்டேஜிங்கா பிரிச்சிங்க பாத்தீங்களா?
ஆமா நான் படிக்கல மெடிக்கல் எக்ஸ்பர்ட்ஸ் ஐ மீன்
நோ இட்ஸ் ஓகே. சோ அது எந்த சிஸ்டமை பேஸ் பண்ணி நம்ம கிளாசிஃபிகேஷன் சிஸ்டம் கிரியேட் பண்ணீங்க?
இங்க போட்டுருக்காங்களே நார்மல், எலிவேட்டட், ஹை blood pressure, ஸ்டேஜ் 1, ஸ்டேஜ் 2, ஸ்டேஜ் 3 அப்படிதானே?
ஆமா, இது எங்க இந்த ரெஃபரன்ஸ் எது சார் இதுக்கு?
ரெஃபரன்ஸ் நீங்க நெட்ல போட்டீங்கன்னா மோஸ்ட்லி எல்லாமே இதே தான் காட்டும். ஓகேவா? திஸ் இஸ் based on the past research இந்த this conclusion comes to it. Okay, this level 1, level 2, level 3.
Okay sir, thank you sir.
Any more doubt?
Sir, இதுக்கு முன்னாடி இருந்த ஸ்லைடு ஒரு நிமிஷம் போட முடியுமா? Next sir, this one second sir. Okay, thank you sir.
You are taking some notes, okay, but make it register those things in mind. Okay, that is very important.
Sure sir, thank you.
I'll share these slides with you, don't worry. Okay, I'll put it in a WhatsApp group. You can see that if you want any notes. But now I'm unmuted. Okay, you can get more idea on the internet also. Okay, or discuss with your seniors or some experts, you will get more, right? Shall we move on to the next?
Sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, high pressure la problem irukku sollirundha sir.
High pressure, low pressure வந்து என்னன்னா blood ஓட மூவ்மெண்ட் இருக்காது, ரொம்ப ஃபீபிளா இருக்கும். நீங்க பல்ஸ் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ரொம்ப ஃபீபிளா இருக்கும். என்ன இருக்குன்னா அதாவது இப்போ right, and the lower part of the body no problem, sometimes they receive the blood because due to this gravitational force. Okay, but in the head we need some pressure to push the blood into the brain tissues. Okay, it's above the heart level. You got the point here? Sometimes low pressure, due to low pressure, what happens, the amount of blood goes to the brain will be lesser amount. So the brain function maybe goes down, or we'll get tiredness, fatigue. They used to say fatigue. These all possible. Okay, low tension also is a medical condition only, but mostly that won't affect like hypertension. Hypertension is a serious case, killer disease. Okay, they may lead to some death, but hypotension also will death, but we can easily identify it because of the tiredness, weakness will come immediately.
Okay sir, thank you sir.
So I hope you may.
Sir, one doubt sir, this is Vivekananda.
Please sir.
Sir, hypertension is higher pressure, high BP.
Hyper, wherever you say hyper, it's high. Okay, hypo means low. Simple. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, for low BP, normally 120/80 you are telling.
Yes.
That means low BP.
Low BP 110 and below is a low BP.
Oh, 110, below 110, if it goes
below 110 low BP. Already told sometimes normal is 120, but at rest, when we are at rest, it records 110 to 120 between. Okay, when we are walking or something, some small activity, mild activity, it goes 120 to 130 between.
Okay, sir.
Records is keep on changing, dynamically changing it, because based on the need of the body, demand of the body. So more contraction means that increases the speed of the blood transportation. Okay.
What could be the reason for this, sir?
Huh?
What could be the reason for this low BP, sir?
Low BP due to some medical condition, dietary problems, and some genetical problems. Okay, it's an excessive relaxation of the blood vessel. Okay, sometimes fear also, sometimes fear also, some factor. I mean, some acute factor. Okay, there are a lot of reasons behind it. Okay, low BP, aging. And I already told you psychosomatic disease. Sometimes they use all the diseases are psychosomatic. And whatever you feel, depressed, stressed, this also leads to some kind of thing. But we don't know known facts. There are so many unknown facts. Okay, people still working on it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, shall we move on to the next? The interesting area, next one. We are going to talk about the blood. Okay, I assume, presumably you are silent. Presumably we are moving on to the next. Okay. Right. Now blood vessels. See that syllabus. Blood vessels. Right? They ask about the blood vessels. I'll give you overview idea of the blood vessel here. Okay. So we starts from the heart. Okay. Most of the blood vessels starts from the heart and ends to the heart. Okay. Blood vessel starts from the heart and ends at the. This is the left side. The red color. See that red color. This is the blue color. The red and blue color defines pure blood and impure blood. Pure and impure means don't think in a yoga term. Okay, I don't know what way they classify it. Here, the pure and impure means oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. They used to use these two words. Okay, oxygen rich blood and oxygen poor blood, or carbon dioxide rich blood. Here, the blue color carbon dioxide rich blood. Red blood or oxygen rich blood. Okay, good. Now you should understand here. This is the left side of the heart. The heart pumps out from the left ventricle, okay, to the outside. Okay, this blood vessel is largest blood vessel here. You can see this. This is the largest blood vessel. Okay, that is called aorta. First blood enters into the aorta. This is the largest artery. See, aorta, largest artery. You know what is artery? Artery takes the blood from the heart. Those vessels are called arteries. This blood vessel takes the blood from the heart, correct? So it is called aorta artery, largest artery. This aorta branches into number of arteries here. If upper side, if your neck side, you can see carotid artery, arms branchial arteries, then divides into the radial arteries. Okay, these arteries. This aorta branches into the different arteries. These arteries branches into the arterioles, small arterioles. Then they branches into the minute part that is called capillaries. I'll come again. Okay, this is the aorta. Aorta is supplies the blood to entire body. Remember, from the left ventricle. Okay, remember that's the important thing. These arteries, there is the blood from the heart. Okay, and it divides into the number of arteries, and it divides into the arterioles. The next slide I'll show you. Next, arterioles, and they branches out to the capillaries. In this level only, the blood exchange, I mean carbon dioxide and oxygen exchange takes place. Okay, so wait a minute. Right here, artery. Sorry for delay. Okay, good. Here, this is aorta, branches into the arteries, arteries into arterioles, arterioles into the capillaries. The capillary level only the exchange takes place, cellular supply takes place. Okay, so oxygen goes into the cell. From the cell, carbon dioxide enters, so that they turn out as a blue color here. Clear? So all the blood collected from the cellular level joins in the venules. Okay, next slide I'll show you venules. These venules joins as a veins. Sometimes doctor use veins. Okay, veins means the blood vessel carries the impure blood or carbon dioxide rich blood, or carries the blood to the heart. Those blood vessels called veins. The blood vessel carries the blood to the part is called arteries. Here veins. These veins joins together and forms from the lower body, from the ouch, from the bottom of from the lower part. It's called inferior vena cava. From the I mean upper part, it is called superior vena cava. Takes entry into the right atrium. Got the point? So arteries, arterioles, capillaries, then capillaries forms venules. Venules becomes a vein, vein become a vena cavas. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. This is a one particular circulation that is called systemic circulation. Sometimes they used to say, I don't know whether that is not in our syllabus, so that I didn't discuss about that. Systemic circulation, the blood, how the blood supply all over the body and comes back to the heart. That is called systemic circulation. There is one more circulation, is called pulmonary circulation. Here what happens, this one is called in the right side of ventricle. I already discussed pulmonary artery, but it carries the impure blood from the right atrium, sorry, right ventricle. This blood goes into the lungs. You can see here, goes into the lungs, artery, arterioles, then capillaries. At this level only in lungs, oxygen comes into the blood and carbon dioxide eliminated. That pure blood again collected as a venules. Here the venules collect the pure blood and joins up. These four are pulmonary veins. Here only one thing here, but there are four things. Four pulmonary opening here in the left atrium. So simple, remember here, just think about the systemic circulation. The systemic circulation, aorta, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins, vena cava. So different major types of blood vessel here, arteries, capillary, and veins. Now you can see here, arteries, arterioles, capillaries. The capillaries again forms the venules. Venules joins the veins. Vena cavas here enters, takes entry here. Okay, so these all blood types of blood vessels in our body. Okay, so most of the times when the IV fluid, like tips giving, they used to give these veins only. They don't use here, right? In arteries only we can find the pulse. In veins we cannot find any pulse. Okay, some people in radial artery only. The doctor used to have your wrist finding the pulse rate. Okay, in the radial artery has the pulse, but veins does not have the pulse. Right. In blood vessel, if you have any doubt, you can ask me. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Aorta into arteries, arteries into arterioles, arterioles branches out to the capillaries. These capillaries joins. Once this area is a capillaries carries a good, I mean pure blood, oxygenated blood, supplies the oxygen to the cell and it takes back the carbon dioxide, so it becomes impure. Here it changes color into the blue. Then this blue color joints is the venules. All small capillary joints carries impure blood. This venules joins as a veins, takes the carbon dioxide rich blood to the right atrium. This right atrium pushes the blood into the right ventricle. This right ventricle takes the impure blood to the lungs where it gets purified. Those purified blood collected by these four pulmonary veins brings the pure blood to the left atrium. This left atrium sends the pure blood into the left ventricle. This left ventricle sends the pure blood into the aorta. The aorta carries the pure blood, supplies to different part of the body, supplies the nutrients, oxygen, other cellular elements to the all cells. This is called main blood supply to cellular blood. Okay. You have any doubt? You will just write arteries, arterioles, capillary, venules, veins. 5 types of blood vessels. So I didn't discuss about the anatomy of the blood vessel. This most of the blood vessel made up of the smooth muscle. In muscular tissue, we discussed smooth muscle, no? That muscle, smooth muscles. The layer, outer layer will be a epithelial tissue. On the endothelial tissue, sometimes they use the inner layer, the inner surface also made up of the epithelial tissue. There are 2 layers here, protective layer on the outside. On the inner side also, some epithelial tissue will be formed. Okay. Good. Any doubt you can ask. I'll give you 1 more minute to ask.
So what is that outer layer tissue?
See, this outer layer of epithelial layer will be there in the outer side of the blood vessel. Okay, epithelial tissue already I told you, giving a lining
Yes,
or
yes.
giving a coating. Same way, inside, that is called endothelial. Inside of the blood vessel also one kind of coating. That coating is called endothelial. That time the epithelial tissue termed as a endothelial. Okay, that is a columnar tissue. Sometimes mild flat squamous tissue cells arrangement like that. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, next we move on to the blood. Next we move on to the blood. Okay, blood is a connective tissue. Already we discussed. Yeah, connective tissue, blood we discussed that in the blood classified as one of the connective tissue. It's only fluid tissue. Only fluid tissue in the body is blood. Okay. Right. This blood composed of 2 elements. One is plasma, another one is formed elements. Okay. If you see here the test tube, they put some blood and make a spin, continuous spin, high revolution. After this high revolution, some things form down. That's what formed elements. They termed as the formed elements here. The rest will be on the top. Okay. This particular constituents of the blood is called plasma. This particular things are called formed elements. Okay. The formed elements are cellular part of the blood. Okay. The blood has 2 things. One is plasma, another one is formed element. Okay. These formed elements are 3. One is red blood cells, platelets, and white blood cells. Yeah. Okay. White blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets. These are cellular elements. They termed as the formed elements. The other part is called plasma. That is a liquid portion of the blood. Okay. Liquid portion of the blood. So you should write it formed elements. Erythrocyte means RBC. Leukocyte means white blood cells, and platelets is the another cellular material in the blood. Okay. Sometimes they ask what is hematocrit. Hematocrit means count of RBC. Only count of RBC is called hematocrit. Okay. So blood, 2 things. One is plasma, another one is formed element. Formed elements are red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. The percentage 45 and plasma is 55%. The main constitute 55% of blood. If it is 100 milli, 55 milli will be plasma. Rest 45 milli will be formed elements. Out of that 45 milli of that formed elements, red blood cells constitute 41%. That means almost half of the blood contains the red blood cells. Okay, or the red blood cells constitute half of the blood quantity, so that the blood looks a red color. Why the blood gets the red in color? Okay, almost half of the quantity of the blood is red blood cell. Plasma and formed elements. Plasma is a liquid portion of the blood. and the formed elements are the cellular part of the blood. Part 55 and 45 is the ratio of the blood. Okay, RBC, WBC, and the platelets are the formed elements. The main composition of the blood. Okay. Right. Now we move on to the plasma. Right. In plasma is 55% total amount of blood. Okay. In this plasma, 92% of the plasma is water. Okay. 92% of plasma is made up of water. The rest 7% constituted by the proteins, very important proteins. There are number of proteins, but the blood plasma contains some important proteins. 7%, that level, 7% level. Those proteins are called albumin, globulin, fibrinogen. Okay, albumin, globulin, fibrinogen. These all proteins dissolved in the plasma. In the plasma, albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. And the rest of the 1% of plasma is considered by the glucose, lipid, and other materials, hormones, okay, and some minerals. These constitute 1% of the plasma. Okay, 90% of water made up of the plasma made of 92% of water. Okay, you should understand sometime now in the very familiar word plasma donation is COVID. People ask plasma donation, do plasma donation here. Okay, so here albumin and globulin. This globulin is the antibodies, creates the antibodies. Globulin. Okay, there is alpha 1 globulin, alpha 2 globulin, beta globulin, and gamma globulin. In gamma globulin, there is one kind of protein called immunoglobulin. That is called sometimes antibodies. Okay, that find out the antigen of the pathogen. Pathogen means the disease causing disease causing like virus or bacteria. This immunoglobulin identify it and fight against it. Okay, and this immunoglobulin only find the antigen of the particular cell, that is when the pathogen enters into our body. Okay, good. Now very clear. Plasma, function of the plasma here. Function of the plasma carries the hormones, nutrients. Okay, and this fibrinogen, I forgot to say, the fibrinogen involves in the blood clotting. Fibrinogen involves in the blood clotting. Okay, what happens here when any damage takes place in the blood vessel? That blood oozing out of the gap. So, in order to prevent the blood loss, there is a natural process takes place inside. Okay, that the process is stopping or preventing blood to enter goes outside. That process is called clotting or coagulation process. But there are number of chemical reaction takes place. But due to this time constraints, I'm explaining very simple. Fibrinogen is a protein that creates a fibrin due to some chemical receptors. That fibrin makes a thread-like structure and covers that damaged area. That make tangles. I mean, like a network. In the gap of the network, filled by the platelets as well as the red blood cells, so that the blood clotted outside due to contact with the external air. Okay. So fibrinogen is a protein involves in the blood clotting. Okay. Now, overview: plasma made up of 92% of water, 7% of protein. Those proteins are albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. Globulin involves in the antibodies. Fibrinogen involves in the blood clotting. This one, water replacement. This albumin involves in the water replacement. Okay, a little later I tell you. Okay, then I don't think I can explain this one now. Next, the rest of the percentage, 1% constituted by the minerals, glucose, lipids. These all nutrients supplies energy to the body or cells, and these are the functions of the plasma. Okay, now you could understand blood constitutes only 8% of total body weight. Okay, you can see here, blood constitutes only 8% of body weight. Total weight of 50. If you are 100 kg, your 8 kg of body weight is equivalent to blood constitutes. Okay, good. This is for a pictorial illustration to make you understand. Here is a plasma. This area is a plasma. 90% of plasma is water. 1% of solubles. The solubles you can see here, and proteins, albumin, globulin, fibrinogen. Prothrombin also involves in the blood clotting. Okay. Okay. Plasma over. We move on to the next. Here, these formed elements. There are three important part of formed elements: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Okay, these are the number. Okay, so 41% constituted by the red blood. Okay, we move on to the red blood cells. Okay, this is a red blood cells picture. See here, right? Red blood cells, sometimes termed as the erythrocyte. Okay, it is a flat structure, like a flat. Typically live about 120 days. It's lifespan of the red blood cell, and the normal RBC ranges 4.5 to 6.1 million cells per microliter. Look at that, microliter, not a liter. Okay, you know what is microliter? In microliter, that is small quantity contains 4.7 to 6.1 million, 4 to 6 million cells of red blood cells. Okay, present in our microliter of blood. Okay. In women, it will be a little lesser due to the size of the body. So approximately 4 to 5.5 million red blood cells present in our microliter of red blood cells. Okay. Mainly, what is the function of the red blood cells? The red blood cells carries the oxygen. Okay. How it able to carry the oxygen? Because this red blood cells has one iron-rich protein called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin has a high affinity to the both carbon dioxide as well as the oxygen. Okay, so each molecule of hemoglobin able to carries 4 molecule of oxygen. Okay, so approximately in the sea, the 100 ml of blood has 20 grams of hemoglobin, a high affinity to oxygen as well as the carbon dioxide. It is a one important protein carries the oxygen and supplies the oxygen to cellular level. Okay, how the blood one of the important function of the heart. Okay, supplying oxygen to entire cell. Without oxygen, we cannot live. Okay, good. This is all about the red blood cells. This biconcave here, it's a two side. The pressing inside means and the down. No? This biconcave, two sides, it's pressed inside like a cave, biconcave. Good. We move on to the white blood cells. Do you have any doubts in the red blood cells? Right, any deficiency in the red blood cells or hemoglobin is called anemia. Okay, what is anemia? Anemia is a deficiency of the red blood cells or the amount of reduction amount of hemoglobin. Any question in the red blood cells? You have any question? Red blood cells?
So how to improve the anemia? How to
Anemia. Sometimes there are a number of reasons. Okay, for deficiency of the red blood cells or hemoglobin content. So mainly dietary shortages sometimes possible. Okay, sometimes women used to have some kind of anemia before pregnant or something. Okay, it's naturally. But only thing supplements you supplements by giving iron-rich food to reduce this anemia level. Okay.
iron rich பண்ணும்போது only RBC count will increase or it will
No. It depends because it's very complex nature. Okay, already I told you that's why I use two words. Okay, number of red blood cells, reduction of number of red blood cells, one kind of anemia. Okay, as well as red blood cells number will be a normal count, but sometimes the hemoglobin content in the already 100 milli of blood contains 20 grams of hemoglobin. That also will be reduced sometime due to some other reason. Okay, that is also anemia. But you have to think about iron rich means here hemoglobin content is less means you can eat that iron rich will help. But red blood cells count is less means you have to work the physiological that is called erythropoietin. Sorry, erythropoiesis. That means genesis of these red blood cells at the bone marrow. That function also might be some reason for the anemia. Okay, but doctors by proper diagnosis they tell you. Okay, but so I'm not discussing here the causes of the anemia. That's not our subject. Okay, now we are talking about the anatomy and the general physiology of these things. Okay, but more about, we have no time here to discuss, but I'll give you a general overview idea. Okay,
Sir, excuse me, sir. Can
a
you hear
little
me?
louder. Your voice is not clear to me.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, now okay. Tell me.
Yeah, yes, sir. For taking blood from our body, why we are using veins, sir?
No, again, tell me. Again, come again.
Why we are using vein to take blood from our body, sir?
Yes. Here, why we are using veins to blood? Yeah, that's your
Yes.
question, right? Right. So there is something here. That excessive amount. Actually, they use only one artery here. Okay, that artery supplies a certain quantity of blood to certain area of the body. If brachial artery supplies only for the hand, okay, we are giving something here, but that excessive amount may damage some here, okay. But in a vein, if you are giving, that goes to the left atrium, sorry, right atrium, go for purification, then come back, so it will enters into the aorta, and that will distribute it equally to the entire body. That's what most of the things enter when we have like drips or blood, whatever way we give, they use only the veins. They don't use arteries.
That's because veins are superficial, arteries are deep.
No, that may not be possible. Okay, that is not exact thing. I don't know whether you are medical background or not. But here they don't use artery to give. Okay, artery has a more pressure. Already I told you, sometimes it comes back, pushing your things outside. Okay, but the veins takes the blood to the heart, so that pressure will be little lesser. That is also one more reason. Okay, medically we cannot discuss this one. Okay, why means there are medical reasons. I'm sure on that. Okay, but prefer most. I hope 100% they don't give intravascular injection. They don't give. Okay, only intramuscular they distribute everywhere. Okay, shall we move on next? Okay, presumably you are very clear. Next, white blood cells. Okay, now we talk about white blood cells. They are called leukocytes. Okay, and the level of leukocytes in the blood between 4,000 to 11,000. But whereas in red blood cells in millions, 4.5 millions to 6 million. But white blood cells only 4 to 11 million in microliter of blood. Okay, here the types, you should understand the types. Okay, this forms the immune system in our body, remember. A little later we'll discuss the different function of the different white blood cells. Mainly, these cells are set as immunity for us. Okay, we call protect from the any pathogen and kills the pathogen or kills the any foreign materials inside. Okay, so these white blood cells has two broad category types. One is a granulocyte, another one is agranulocyte. There is no agranules. Granules, you know what is granules? Small dots inside, dotted things. That is called granules. Okay, so those cells are granulocytes. Cyte means already told you. Cyte means cell. Okay, agranulocyte, they don't have any kind of that granules inside, so that they termed as the agranulocyte. So simple to remember here. One is granulocyte. There are three types here in granulocyte: neutrophil, basophil, and eosinophil. Okay, neutrophil, basophil, eosinophils. These are granulocytes. These are white blood cells, and they have some kind of granules inside, and it is a multinucleotide. One thing I forgot to tell you: red blood cells, the matured red blood cells does not have any nucleus. Matured red blood cells. Okay, but here white blood cells has nucleus inside. They have here you can find three lobes. Okay, here one lobe, and some inside also the multi-lobed nucleus. Eosinophil also bilobed nucleus inside. Okay, these all three types under granulocytes: neutrophil, basophil, eosinophil. Okay, we have two more types of blood cells. One is monocyte, another one is lymphocyte. Okay, monocyte and a lymphocyte. Monocyte has the macrophages and the dendritic. And lymphocyte, you should very clearly, you may have heard about this word lymphocyte. And the lymphocyte, they have two types. One is B cell, another one is T cell. Okay, B cell has the larger size of the, here you can see there is a lymphocyte, larger size of nucleus than the any other white blood cells. Okay, so the lymphocyte has two types. One is B cell, another one is T cell. This T cell, sometime the HIV or some other virus infection, they replicate like they looks like a T cell, so that the body understand we have enough number of T cells. So T cell production is so less, they are very prone to the any diseases. Very vulnerable to the any other diseases to attack. Okay, that's called T cells. So white blood cells, granulocytes, agranulocytes. In granulocytes, we have neutrophil, basophil, and eosinophil. And agranulocyte, monocyte, and lymphocyte. The monocyte has, just forget about this one. So lymphocyte has a very importantly B cell and a T cell. Okay, each cell has a different function. Each cell has a different function. You can see here, monocyte. The one monocyte here, lymphocyte, the T cell and B cell. Here eosinophil, the basophil, and the neutrophil. The eosinophil, basophil, neutrophil. It is all about the strain they gets after they put in this the strain called eosin. When they're testing that white blood cells, they use a strain called eosin. When they are this eosin loving cells called eosinophil, their color changes into the base color, so that it's called basophil. Neutrophils, no changes takes place into the strain. Okay, so that they classified and term the types like this here. Okay, good. So main function of the monocyte here, monocyte is the monocyte. This monocyte is a larger lifespan, and they fight against the bacteria mainly. Okay, and the lymphocyte, very important white blood cell. Okay, potentially harmful invaders. They fight against the potentially harmful invaders, very harmful. Okay, so number of bacteria enters every day, but those bacteria, harmless bacteria, are killed by the monocyte. But the lymphocyte is fight against the virus and the other harmful invaders. Okay, neutrophils digest bacteria and fungi. It's the first line of defense. They used to say first line of defense. Neutrophils are the first line of protection. Okay, first they identified and try to fight. If when it unable to fight and kill, so other and the white blood cells takes control. Basophil, they are the small cell. Okay, first thing. This is called one. They releases one histamine. Sometime you may heard the histamine. Histamine is a marking the pathogens. Okay, they identify the pathogen that enters in the body. That means that that particular microorganism is not related to our body, so they marks it basophil. Okay, once it marks, the other cell can identify it is not our bodies, it is something external, so that the other white blood cells start fighting against it. Right, and the eosinophil, sometime you might heard eosinophilia. Okay, there is allergic reason most of the times. This allergic type of things, and these eosinophils are fighting against them. Right, good. Now WBC functions are there. The types here: granulocyte. These three are granulocyte, eosinophil, basophil, and neutrophil. They have nucleus, multi-lobed nucleus inside. The other two types, agranulocyte, does not have any granules inside. They are monocyte and lymphocyte. Lymphocyte has the two types. One is B cell, other one is a T cell. Now finally, we right. Any doubt in white blood cells? So I understand you are clear. Third cellular part of the cellular element is called platelets. Okay, they are the blood cells involved in the blood clotting. Okay, this blood clotting already told you. Fibrinogen also involves, and coagulation factor also is there in the one thing called coagulation factor that is also present in the blood plasma. Once any damage takes place in the blood vessel, in order to prevent the blood leakage, chemical reaction takes place. Once they found some chemical receptors that activates the fibrinogen, fibrinogen then turns into the fibrin. It is kind of become a protein. Then they make a thread-like structure, like threads, and make a network. Once that also releases some more enzyme, some more kind of enzyme and chemicals. That enzymes are activating the these platelets, so they rush towards the damaged part and tangled in the network gap, so that the blood can stop from going out. This is a function of the platelet involves in the blood clotting. The process, blood clotting process, is a chain of chemical reactions. Okay, we have no time, but try to understand a simple way. They involves in the blood clotting mainly, which in associate which associated with the fibrinogen. Fibrinogen also involves in the blood clotting process. You could understand the composition of blood or constituents of the blood and their function. We come to an end. Any doubt? We have another 10 more minutes. Okay, evening also we have session, so we have 10 more minutes. And if you have any doubt, you can ask me. So I want to make a little easier way and to give you some kind of idea in the examination perspective. Okay, but this particular area would be covered in classrooms. Will take much time to explain it, and we have a class interaction, student interaction, so that we can able to see your body language and be able to see your facial expressions. Then we'll understand whether we are reaching you or not. Now we are unable to see those things here. Okay, so whether you understand or not, no? So it's a one kind of a disadvantage through this online classes. Okay, many medics are wet. Some people are there. They are they can give some more clarification if I'm wrong anywhere. So anybody from your side, from medical background, you can tell me some reason. I mean, if I'm wrong, you can you can you can say, and I would have been correct. Any doubts?
Diagram based questions means.
What you're a little feeble. Faintly, I'm hearing you. Just make it a little louder.
Diagram based questions, is it only with the heart, or we can expect more diagram based questions?
No.
Mention draw diagram, no, or we have to go with.
No. They may not give you clear idea, but how you are presenting your answers is important. Okay, but try to understand the relevant answer first. Or I mean, outline your relevant answer. Then present it in. If you need some picture to make them to understand, put it. Okay. If they ask you specifically diagram, you must. I need structure of heart. Now there is no other option. You must do it. Okay. Sometime explain different types of blood vessel. No need of any blood thing, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, veins, venoles. Then if you want to give some more idea what is that, you can make a small outline or like a simple diagram. What is artery? What is like that? I show no one simple picture. If you want, okay. So you should depends on the question. You should present yourself. Don't think they may, most of this distance education mode what I believe, they'll ask you generalized question. They don't go for very specific question. Already I don't know what is macrophage, how that lysosome kills any bacteria or viruses like that. They don't go very specific question here. They make you some kind of generalized question so that either way you can present or you can touch any part of the question here. Like that only they'll ask you. Okay? Don't think about this examination. Examination very easy. Okay, if you have a basic idea, you can simply present. Okay, you are in the distance education mode, but you are free to do, free to collect all the knowledge for your future sake. To enrich your knowledge, you should do some more effort. Go through the net or textbooks and read it and enrich your knowledge. That's the main purpose of having giving and I mean offering these kind of courses to you all. Okay, not simply getting your degree to use for proudly saying that I have MSc, I have PG diploma in yoga like that. Okay, but main purpose you should realize it, and you are expected to enrich your knowledge, right? Right. Any question? Any difficulty also please tell me. Then I can give you some other sources to give you, I mean, give you help you out, like some other notes or some other way, any special practice you need, like that we can help you out. Once you tell me only, we could understand. I cannot, I do understand some people may not have this kind of background. They may find some difficulties, but we are ready to help you out. You should let us know. Then only we could understand that what is your difficulty.
Sir, Felix sir, this is Devivala.
Yes, yes.
Sir, the only help we need from you is to send the whatever the thing which you have taught today. Can you send it through the
Yeah.
WhatsApp?
I'll give you. For I have no
Because
situation.
that will help us to revise the portion again to clear the doubts from in the next class, sir.
Okay. I'll leave this into your WhatsApp group or something. Don't worry about that. Okay, but this is only very limited content is there. But you are expected to read more. Okay, so many things I couldn't make it today because of the time constraint. Okay.
Okay,
So
sir.
you go read, but this is more than enough to present. What you will learn today, that's more than enough to present in your examination. You'll get a decent mark. Okay.
Yes,
but
sir.
if you are putting more, if you want to put more presentation, you should get some more knowledge from some other.
Yes, sir. Yes, I understand. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Anything?
Hi, Felix sir. This is Vinod here.
Vinod, please.
Sir, I'm actually from commerce background, right? So I'm trying to understand whatever you're explaining, but it is taking time because the terminology is very new.
Yeah,
we're
that's
not
only
used to that, and so I was just thinking. I mean, do you have any other maybe some videos or some material which kind of does a double click of the same and explains it in bit more detail? So
No,
that
that's
help
what.
in
If I,
registering.
there are number of videos available. For
Okay.
that thing, I mean, the last one I given you that cardiac cycle, but you need that video how the heart functions. Okay, but this thing are very, how we say, like a picture only will help you out. So in what is the anatomy of the red blood cells? I shown you that is a flat biconcave. Okay? That's two words. These are some terminology. Flat and biconcave. So what is the no need of any video for that one. So that I didn't bring. Okay, or else there are many videos are there. I try to because I cannot play many videos that consume more time also. Okay, once I complete it and if I play some video that consumes some more time. Main problem with you all distance education, the time constraint. Okay, within 3 class, 4 class, we have to complete the entire syllabus. Very tough job because it is that too in the classroom. It's not a classroom condition, no. We have a lot of constraints. We have to make it. The thing is, you have to take more effort. That's the main reason of. If any difficulty, please let us know. Next time, if I come, I'll come up with more videos as you said.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.